Today, we're checking out the WDesignKit platform from Posymyth. Now, before we go any further, this is a sponsored video, but I'm going to give you no opinions. I'm simply going to demonstrate some of the key features so you can make a more informed decision for yourself. Okay, with that out of the way, what exactly is the WDesignKit platform and what do we do with it? Well, first of all, it's a all-in-one solution for effortless WordPress website creation and collaboration, which sounds cool, but what exactly does that even mean? Well, it means we've got access to over 100 widgets, 3+ widget builders, which we'll take a look at a little later, that allows us to create our own widgets and make them available inside Bricks, Elementor, or Gutenberg, which is pretty neat. You've also got 50+ ready-made Figma files, 2,000+ ready-made templates. You've also then got free cloud sharing and workspace. This allows you to collaborate with team members to store your content in the cloud so you can share it, you can use it on other projects, and if you want to, you can give access using various different methods. But today we're going to concentrate on taking an overview of the platform and focus on how you can use these widget builders to get started creating your own custom widgets. Now, once you've created your account on WDesignKit, and you can start off with a free account so you can test it out, install a plugin on a copy of WordPress and then connect everything up, full instructions included in the plugin and on the website, you'll have access to the WDesignKit inside your dashboard of WordPress. So if we log in, we take a look at the basics that we have here. First up, you can see we've got a bunch of different templates available. These are also set up at the moment to Elementor or Gutenberg. You have Bricks as well. I just don't have Bricks installed at this point in time. There's free and pro. You can also choose what type, whether you want full pages, just sections, or full page kits, which are basically the entire website with a key page like homepage, about us, contact, and so on. You've also got then what plugins are being used. So if you want to focus on things like Elementor Pro, for example, or you want to use WooCommerce, you can choose from here. So there's various different ways in which you can filter through the various different templates that you have. So for example, let's filter these down to the free and we'll say sections. And then you can see we've got a range of different sections we can work with, like footers, you've got headers and so on. So there's a bunch of different options available inside here. And you can see there's 90+ pages on here. So there's quite a few to choose from. So you're probably going to want to go and filter these down. For example, you may want to use the free version of Elementor. Well, now you can filter those down and you can see we have 38 pages of content. Then if you want to, you can simply come in and take a look at any of these sections. So for example, we might like the look of this header. What we can do is we can click. That will then open it up and show us more information about it. So it'll give us an overview, the number of views and downloads and so on. We can have a live preview to see exactly what this looks like. And now we can see exactly what this looks like on the page. So we get an idea of how it would look if we use this as a starting point. If we scroll down a little bit further, you can also see what page builders you can use, any plugins that are being used, and so on. And you can see this is made by WDesignKit, but one of the features of WDesignKit is that you can create your own content, and in the future, or maybe even right now, you can sell this content. You can make it available to other people or make it free for other people. So you could share your designs if you wanted to on a kind of marketplace setup, which is pretty neat. Okay, so once we've done that and we've seen exactly how to work with this, if you want to, you can go and download it. You can see there's instructions here how to download it. And if we come back into WordPress, we'll click the download link from here. You can see you've got a little download option. This tells us we're missing 2 key plugins. So we can say install all. So this will install those. They're both free, so that's fine. Let's let those install. And you can see they've been added. We'll click on next. It says there's the section that we're going to download. We can download this and save it as a post or a page. We'll click import for this example. And we now have that successfully imported. If we want to, we can click on view and we can take a preview of that. I'm not going to worry about it right now, but we've downloaded it. It's all set up. So it's very, very easy to choose these template parts, full page templates, full site template designs with page kits and so on, and download them and start working with them. And also, like I say, if you're missing any plugins, it'll offer to download them at the same time if they're free. If not, you're going to have to do it with the pro versions yourself. Okay, so that's the template side of things. As you can see, there's a lot. If we come into widgets, let's go and browse these widgets. And then we have a bunch of widgets available to us. Again, you can see we can filter things based upon free or pro versions. And we've also got categories inside here as well, so we can filter things down a little bit more. And before we go any further, what exactly are these widgets? Well, if you kind of consider these to be a fully featured little segment, for example, a button or a banner or an effect for a card, those are basically widgets. So what you can do is you can download these into the relevant platform, Gutenberg, Elementor or Bricks, and then you can just use these as a normal widget inside your design. So if you want to drag them into a design, you can do that, and all the data is inside there. But it goes much, much further than that, and we will come back and take a look at how we can create and customize these widgets ourselves. But for now, let's take a look at some of the pre-built examples and see how they work. Let's take this Info 3D card as an example. If we click on it, it will open up a viewer, pretty much we saw with the templates. And again, we've got a live preview and so on. What is useful though, it tells us what page builder is being used and also the assets and the size of those assets. So we can make an informed decision as to whether we want to install these, knowing the size of those particular files. Pretty cool, gives the ability to check before we make some impact on our site and wonder where that's coming from. So I'll say I'm okay with that. Let's click on live preview and we can then take a look at what this looks like. So there's an example underneath. So we've got these cards, and if we hover over, you can see we get this kind of 3D pop-out effect, which is pretty neat. Now, depending upon the actual widget that you choose, you may have multiple different examples, so you can kind of get a feel for the things that you can do. Now, once you've kind of found the widget that you like, you're then going to download it to a local copy of this. So you can see we've got this download button one more time. You've also got this little sort of globe in the corner telling us this is a public file. So if you create your own, which we'll talk about a little later, you can set this to be private to share just inside your organization with accounts, or you can set this up to be available to anybody so anyone can download it, which is a great way of being able to share these. Okay, so let's choose to download this. So we now have a local copy of this. You can see if we take a look at this particular widget, we've got the little eye icon that tells us we've got a copy of this downloaded. So we can click and that will take us into our My Widgets section. You can also access this from the top and just choose My Widgets from there as well. So you can see I've got one that I've created previously and I've got the one we just downloaded now. If we take a look at this one, you can see this says local in the top right hand corner because this is on my copy of WordPress that I'm currently working with. Whereas if you take a look at the next one, this tells us this is in local and remote. So in other words, we've got a copy on this copy of WordPress and we've got a copy saved in the cloud platform that's part of WDesignKit. So we've got that available and I can use this on other sites or share it if I want to, which is pretty cool. Okay, so let's take a quick look at this info card 3D in a little bit more detail. First of all, we've got these three dots underneath. If we click, we can choose to edit it in a new tab, delete it, duplicate it, or download a zip file. For this example though, let's just choose the option to edit in a new tab. Now once we do that, this brings us into the widget editor. Now I'm not going to go into too much detail here. We'll come back and take a look at this in more detail when we create something from scratch. But I want to go over the fundamentals of what's going on here so you kind of get a feel for this before we create something really simple just to demonstrate how it works. Okay, so this main area is broken into three key components. You've got your code block on the left-hand side, you've got your various different content elements, and then you've got your data controllers on the right-hand side. You can also switch between the layout and styles inside here so you can customize various different styles if you want to. Now, in the main window, things are broken down into three distinct areas: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now, if you've ever used CodePen, this is going to be very familiar to you because most of those are broken down into those three key areas. HTML is the code that'll make up, in this example, that card, the 3D card. The CSS is then styling various different aspects of it. You can see all the CSS code inside here. And then the JavaScript in this example is doing nothing. But if you have JavaScript, this will be available and you can then edit it, do what you need to with it. So it's all contained inside this one single editor. So we come back to the HTML, for example. Let's take a quick look. Let's expand this window out and let's see what's going on. There's a bunch of HTML code that you may be familiar with if you work with HTML yourself. But you'll also notice you've got these weird kind of little squiggly line things. And what the heck does that even mean? Well, these are connecting up to data controllers. So you can see this media, select, text, and so on. These data controllers allow us to have widget controls inside the actual editor itself. Let me show you what I'm talking about so you can kind of see. Okay, for this example, I'm simply using Gutenberg. But like I said, the principle applies the same if you're using Elementor or you're using Widget Builder. If we come over to where we normally add in anything, you'll see we've got the info card 3D and the card inverted border. So these are the two widgets that I have inside this particular copy of WordPress. So let's add the 3D card in. Now you'll notice that nothing is really going on there. That's because this is basically just a placeholder in this example. Now if we take a look on the right hand side, you'll see all those data controllers available. So the main banner image, the title image, the character, and then also the box link and any other attributes that have been set up inside here. If you come into style, you can see there's very different style controls. So what this allows us to do is to create our own widgets and then be able to apply these data controllers to do different things. So for example, like I say, let's come back to the layout. Let's just upload an image. Let's choose this one. and say select. So you can see now that puts the image in there. So you can see we've got the 3D effect. Now obviously we've only got the one image inside here, but you can see how easy it is. Now we can add all the other images in and so on. So these data controllers give us full control over what we want to allow people to change and edit. And the cool thing here is that all these data controllers are being simply dragged and dropped in, and then we just choose where and when to assign them. So for example, you can see we've got these div classes for the card title. Well, we've got the relevant data controllers, which are text ones. So you can see text, text, text. This pulls those in. And then when we're inside Gutenberg or Elementor or Bricks, it replaces them with the relevant kind of placeholders, and we fill out the relevant details. And this is all controlled from this main layout panel and simply dragging in these various different controls for our data controller. And as you can see, there's a lot inside here. So we've got dynamic controls for post listings and product listings, multi-value controls for URLs, media, and so on, unit controls. You kind of get the idea. There's a lot of options here. And if you want to, you can simply come in. For example, we've got this main banner, which you've just seen. You can select it, and then all of the options are available in the total right-hand panel there for you, where you can edit those. And you can simply come back in, add more controllers. Let's say we want to add another data controller in, text area, for example. We can drop that in, and you see that immediately creates the relevant code here, ready for us to insert that into the HTML code where we need it. Like I said, I'll come back and give you a simple example of how to build this yourself, but I wanted to show you fundamentally what's going on here and why this actually makes it such a powerful option. Okay, now let me just quickly show you how you've set this to go up to the cloud so you can have your own copy of it. Because currently, this is kind of like, even though it's a local copy, it's still the original that we've downloaded. So what we're going to do is we're going to come to these three dots and we're going to say to duplicate. We'll change the name of this and we'll just put WPTuts at the end of it. Click duplicate. So now if we want to, we can edit this card from here, or we can simply back out of this. And you can see there's our info card 3D, which is still a local copy. Now let's say I want to make this available to my team. I want to share it up to the cloud so they can get access and they can make the necessary changes, use it where they want in a different design. You get the idea. Well, now we've got a new option. If we open this up, you can see we've got the option for push widget. This will push it up to our cloud space as part of WDesignKit. So let's push this widget. From here, we can choose to handle version control. So you can currently, this is version 1.00, but you could change this if you made some changes. You get the idea. And then if you have made changes, you can put what changes you made inside here in the changelog, which again, if you're working as part of a team or you're handing this off to people remotely to make changes and things and then come back to you, it's good to have that changelog so you can see what and when things were made different in there. And if you want to, you can add more details, but for now, we'll just say update. And now you'll see we've got a local and remote copy of this. And we still got our local. So what we could do is we could say, well, we finished with that. Let's just delete it. And all we're doing is deleting that local copy. This doesn't affect what's stored on the actual WDesignKit servers. So now if we want to, we can edit this. So again, we've got the same option. So edit in a new tab. So you can make changes to this and all those same options are available. So we can start customizing this with whatever we want to do. We've seen how to work with these widgets. We've seen how we can push them to the cloud. Let's now go into the WDesignKit platform itself. This is on the WDesignKit domain, so this isn't part of our website. And inside here, you can see our dashboard, which tells us some basic information about the statistics for our uploads, favorites, and so on. Our templates, and our widgets, designs, and so on. So let's take a quick look at our widgets. We'll take a look at uploaded. And you can see inside there's our info card 3D WPTuts. So that's available inside here as well. So now anybody that accesses this can have access to that card. And our card's inverted border is also here. You'll notice this is set as private, but if we want to, we can click those three dots again, and you can see there's different options inside here now. So we can edit this, add to our favorites, copy to workspace, view it, we can't in this example, and delete. So let's just say we want to edit this. You see this now gives us the ability to add more information in. So we're not editing the actual code in this example, we're editing the actual details for this widget, which is great, like I say, if you're sharing this between yourself and clients, yourself and your team, kind of whatever you want to do. So your description, if you want to apply a demo, tutorial, and so on. So again, if you're handing this off to clients, it could be useful that they can see this inside their dashboard so they could add it in themselves. There is a tutorial as well to show you exactly how to use it. You kind of get the idea. You can apply a featured image if you want to. You can also manage this for what exactly it's relating to, what page builder, what category it's in, for example. So maybe inside creative, apply tags if you want to, customize the featured image. So if you want to change this or there isn't one there, you can add one in. You can set whether this is private or public so you can share it with other people. And then once you've finished, hit save. And that's our card saved. And if we want to, we can view from here. You can add more JavaScript, add more CSS, or add more jQuery. So we click on one of these, you can see we can add the name, the file, and we can add more JS. So you can add information inside this. This is more informational based. To come back now to our widgets, go to uploaded, and you can see there's our card. If we add this to our favorites, we come into favorite, you can see that's now been favorited. Come into download, you can see we can download the card from here. And if you want to see ones that are shared specifically with you, you can see there's the option there for shared with me as well. So our dashboard gives us a lot of options when it comes to working with these widgets. So that's pretty cool. But there's also a lot more inside here. We've seen the widget section. If we come into templates, you can see any uploaded templates will be listed here, any favorited, any downloaded, and you can see there's our header, any shared with me, and if we want to, we can create a new kit. So if we click on that, you can see we've got a similar kind of setup to what we had with the widgets, where we can create, the title, short introduction, description, live demo, all those kinds of good things, featured images and everything else. So this is a good way of being able to sort of store and collate all your information. If we come into workspace, for example, we can create workspaces, so manage and collaborate assets with ease. So if we create a new workspace, let's just call this WPTuts. I would say create workspace. So now we have a custom workspace. So we can click, we can view this. This will show us our workspace. We can break things down to templates and widgets and so on. You can manage members if you want to add additional members inside here. So if you've got a specific member of a team or a client or whatever you want to work with, you can share that here as well. You can choose what role they are, those kinds of good things. And then once you're ready, you can just click the invite and share that information so they can then access this section. Now, how do we actually add content to our workspace? It's very simple. Let's come back to our widgets, for example. Coming to upload it. We say we want to share our info cards. We'll click our three dots and we'll say copy to workspace, choose which workspace we want. Copy. Now if we come into our workspace and open this one up, choose our widgets, there's our widget. Simple as that. So now we have a way of organizing things. So you could set this up to work with team members, or you could set this up when it comes to a specific project you may be working on for a client. So you can kind of collate all the relevant pieces into this one workspace, which makes life a little easier to know exactly where everything is, and you don't have to then dig around everywhere else to go and find what you're looking for. So now we take a look over some of the key features. Let's go back and create our own custom widget so I can show you the process of setting all this up. So for our example, let's keep this really, really simple. Let's create a new widget. We'll grab some code from CodePen and I'll show you then how you can create things. But obviously you can do this totally manually if you want to. I'm just showing you this just because it's a little bit quicker and easier. First, let's create a new widget. We'll give it a name. You can also give it a featured image. So let's just simply go and grab an image we can use there. All we need to do now is add this. So we'll say we can drag and drop, or we can just simply choose an image from our computer. So there we go. We now have a featured image. If you want to put an icon in, you can do, but let's say just create the widget. Okay, so we've seen this before. This is the basic setup. So now let's start creating things. If we come over into CodePen, this is what we're going to take a look at today. We're going to take these buttons and we're going to set this basic strip of buttons up, but obviously you could keep this really simple and just have a single button. So first things first, we've got the HTML, the CSS, and in this case, there's no JavaScript, but if there was, obviously that's going to be in the right-hand column. So let's grab the HTML code, copy it, head back over, and we're going to paste that in. So this is just effectively the buttons. As you can see, they've been given a class, and each class is different. So fill, pulse, and so on. This is then going to apply to the relevant CSS. So if we go to the CSS tab, head back over into CodePen. This is the CSS code. So what we're going to do is we're simply going to click this little arrow and we're going to say view compiled CSS just to make sure that we've got exactly what we want. And then we're going to just copy it. And again, we're going to go back and we're going to paste this into the CSS tab. Now, let's take a quick look over this because there's some things inside this code we don't actually need. Obviously, if you were writing this for yourself, wouldn't be an issue. So first, let's go to the HTML. I don't want this H1. We just want the buttons in this example. So we can remove that from there, come to the CSS, and if we take a look, we don't need this H1, so we can get rid of that. And if we scroll up, you can see we've got this body. Well, obviously we don't want to affect the body of our page, so let's get rid of that as well. Quick scan through just to make sure everything looks okay, that these are all specific to this particular effect or effects that we want. You can leave this code in if you want to at the top, this sort of comment. Let's get rid of it for clarity, and everything else looks pretty good. Okay, so there's all the CSS, there's the HTML. So let's simply save this, and we now have a copy of this created as a custom widget. Let's come back out of here, And there's our animated button set custom widget, which you can see is local. And if we want to, we can click the three dots and we can push this up to our account. Everything is fine in there. We'll say it's version 1. We'll click update, and that will now synchronize with our cloud account. Pretty simple and easy. Okay, so now we've got a local and a remote copy. We can favorite this if we want to. All those things we've seen. Now, the next thing I want to do is make some changes to this, but let's test it out first of all, see how this works inside Gutenberg. So let's add a new page. And we're just going to add a container in so we can contain everything. And inside there, we're going to just search for buttons. And you can see there's our animated button set. We'll click to add that in, and there's our animated buttons. If we hover over, we can see the effect taking place. Just to make lives a little easier, let's make this background dark. So we'll select our container, give ourselves a bit of spacing on here, set a minimum height, and we'll just set this to be 50 VH. And let's set our background, so we'll come back in, choose our background color, set this to be black in this example. There we go. And we'll just pop in a little bit of space around it. There we go. So now we can see the effect just a little bit better when we hover over each one of these. So that's really simple, and we could use this exactly as it is, but this is only scratching the surface of what you can really do. Let's publish this. Let's go back over into WDesignKit, and let's edit this. So let's come back in and choose to edit. Now, this is where the power starts to come in. All these buttons are basically filled in with relevant information. But let's just say we wanted to make this totally customizable. Well, all we need to do is just select this. We'll delete it. We'll come over to our section. We'll add in some text. We'll just call this settings. Text is fine. And now we can fill out any information we want. So if you want to give this a name, so you may want to give these unique names like BTN, Fill, for example. Most important thing here is that every name that you give it is unique. So if you do name these manually, make sure you only use that name one time. Okay, so you can add in some placeholders, and then you can drop in a default value if you want to as well. But in this example, let's just leave that out. Now, the other thing you can do here is you can take this one step further. If you're using something like Elementor Pro or you're using Bricks, you can use dynamic data as part of the actual platform itself. So what you could do is you can actually make this a dynamic value. So you can click, and then this can be used to connect it up to dynamic variables inside whatever build you're using there. This opens up even more power to what you can do. But now we've done the basics, let's just insert this code inside here. So this placeholder, we're going to click the button filled. That puts in the curly braced version, which tells it this is going to be a controller from WDesignKit. So now we can customize this. So let's just save this. Again, we can push this version up if we want to. So we may say this is now version 0.1. Pop in a changelog, click on update, and we've now got an updated version with a changelog with some dynamic content available. So open this back up now inside Gutenberg. You can see our first button has no text in there because we didn't put a default value in. So if we come over now, you can see we've got text as an option. So we can just say, there we go. So we've now added in our custom data, and you see the button still operates, but we've added in custom data for the button text. This is how you can start to use this in a much more powerful fashion. So we can see how easy it is to be able to create these widgets and also how to use them, customize them, and so on. But let's just say that you set something up and you like the look of it inside Gutenberg or Elementor, for example, but then you move over to another builder like Bricks. Do you have to start from scratch? Well, this is where another really cool feature comes into play. We can easily convert. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So what I've done here is I've installed WDesignKit alongside Bricks, and I've connected that up to my workspace for WPTuts. And that means I can share these with that account. So now I've got access to this, but as you can see, it's a Gutenberg-based widget, which is no real use to us inside Bricks. Let me show you. Let's click our three dots, and this time we have a new option that says Convert. If we click on there, it tells us convert the current widget from, in this case, Gutenberg, and we're going to select Bricks for our builder. Click Next. We can change this if we want to. Let's call it Bricks Buttons. The featured image is fine. I'm not going to worry about jQuery, we're not using any of that, and we'll click on Convert. And there we go, that's now been converted successfully. So if we want to, we can edit this. So we click, you can see we're back in, so we can start editing. This time everything is now in yellow, so we can see that we're working inside a Bricks environment, as opposed to blue, which is inside the environment for Gutenberg, and the purpley kind of color for Elementor. But you can see everything is set up exactly the same. All our CSS is inside here, all the modifications we made to it, the HTML, including our custom controller has been added in. So let's push that back up. So we've shared a copy of this. Now we've got everything set up. So let's go and create a page and insert this inside Bricks. So we've created a typical standard blank page in Bricks. Now let's come up to our elements and let's search for our button. And you can see there's our Bricks buttons. We can click to add that in. Choose the option and you can see there's our buttons. Now if we select Bricks, you can see we come to the settings on the left hand side. There's our text, and because we set this as dynamic data, we also have the dynamic data option available to us. And you see all the normal dynamic data is available. So if you want to connect this up to an options page, for example, using like ACF, you could do that inside here, and then you could have custom data pulled in to name your button. For this though, we'll just pop in some normal text, and you can see there's our sample button with our data, everything set up. Gives us all the options we want. Now, this is a really simple example. You couldn't get much simpler, but there are so many options in which way you can pull these controllers in and do so much more than what I've shown you here. So this is really just scratching the surface of what you can do using WDesignKit. What you can see though, hopefully, from my demonstration is that this gives you a kind of like centralized location where you can store and share, create your own widgets, templates, designs, and so on. Easily convert those widgets from one platform to another through Elementor, Gutenberg, or Bricks, so you don't need to recreate every single time. How easy it is to share this, how easy it is to connect up workspaces and have those available inside projects you're working on, share it with other people, developers inside your company, or maybe external workers. You kind of get the idea. There's a lot of features inside WDesignKit to check out. Now, all applicable links are in the description down below, and I would welcome your feedback and comments on this. Have you tested it? Is this something that's interesting to you? Check out, try a free account, get it up and running, and see exactly how it all works. As always, my name is Paul C. This is WPTuts, and until next time, take care.